once again, welcome to the 11th, 12th, or 13th Leader Post Rider Rumblings podcast. Not sure how many it's been. The intro, as always, was performed by the Leader Post Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by Gus Tchaikovsky. Our guests today, as always, the venerable, if not venerated, Leader Post football writer, Murray McCormick. Murray, thanks again for being here, even though you have no choice but to be. It's part of your obligation.
You had me running for the thesaurus every introduction. Thank you.
What's another word for thesaurus, anyway? To my left, I don't think any introduction is required, but I will do so anyway. 23-year-old Dan Farthing, 11-year member of the Saskatchewan-roughriders. Prior to that, an Evan Hardy soul, correct?
No, Holy Cross
Crusader.
That's right.
Sorry, my apologies to Holy Cross. Dominated, I think, it was the first Senior Bowl that you absolutely took over.
Well, I don't know.
Or one of the first ones, right?
I had a lot of help.
Always self-effacing or modest. University of Saskatchewan Huskies.
That's
He's
right,
now an owner and the owner-operator of Level 10 Fitness in Regina, which used to be a Safeway, right next to Larry.
That's right.
Right next to Larry's Confectionery.
Yeah, Larry's Confectionery.
Up,
yeah.
Have I missed anything? Husband, father,
all those things.
And a Grey Cup champion with the 2013 Rough Riders. So
well, in a coaching capacity or strength and conditioning coaching capacity, yes.
But I'm still gonna
thank you.
I'll always think of you as a champion. That's a lot to put on a business card.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, where to start? There's always myriad topics to discuss with the Rough Riders. I'm interested in your perspective, Dan, because the Rough Riders are in a position where they're going in, they're winning, but they're doing so without a so-called elite quarterback. Mm-hmm. I think you've seen both ends of teams that you've seen every extreme with when you played with the Rough Riders. There were teams that didn't have an elite quarterback and didn't win. Yeah. They were in '97. There was a team that didn't have an elite quarterback who played at an elite level at the right time and did win.
Yeah.
And then you played with Ken Austin and Tom Burgess and Henry Burris.
Yeah.
So you sort of ran the gamut.
Yeah, for sure.
With regards to quarterbacking, what challenges are faced when a team? I'm not saying this to disparage Brandon Bridge, but when you don't have that so-called marquee quarterback, what are the challenges that are involved, and what are the dynamics that are?
Well, I think they're overcoming the greatest challenge, and they've got a few wins. I think that at the end of the day, when you evaluate the success of a season, it's just W's and L's, right? So I think that in and of itself is the biggest challenge. Are they doing so in grand fashion? I think no one would argue that. But the thing about what they have going on right now is they've got a very, very strong defense that's keeping them in ball games. And I'll say this with a little bit of an explanation: scores are easy to come by in football. And but what I mean by that, and anybody who's watching this team would argue the opposite, but the thing is that every single play in the playbook is drawn up to go the distance, to score. So if you're within an arm's length of your appointment on the scoreboard, that difference can be made up in a single play. And because of that, an 80-yard touchdown run, or a punt return for a touchdown, a fumble recovery, or an interception return for a touchdown, all of a sudden you're back in the game, and maybe not even back in the game, but winning the game. So when you're able to accomplish that and do it repeatedly, like they've done it consecutively, it seems like you're always going to have this glimmer of hope, no matter what the situation is, that a win is within reach, and that is something that carries with it, a little bit of momentum. It's a little bit contagious in and amongst the team when you're going right down to the last minute and feeling like all it's going to take is an 80-yard touchdown run, a punt return for a touchdown, and an interception, and we got this. And part of them, I think, maybe believes that a little bit because of the athletes that they have on the field. And and the converse of that is, like if you start losing those close games, and if you feel like you can never overcome a 6-point deficit, then things start to tumble the other way. But that's not happening for them right now. So they have they've got a win or two out of it. So it's hard to argue that, right?
I always thought Converse was a shoe. You're the first person ever to use Converse in an interview that I've done. I've been doing this for 30 years.
Was it appropriate? I don't know.
You nailed it. Okay. We're just here to come up with words that Murray doesn't understand.
Yeah.
The game on Thursday, Dan talked about it so perfectly. But right before halftime, there's 38 seconds left, and they run the ball 3 times, and it's almost like they're going to the locker room while on fire. Like, just get us off this field. We want no part of having the football. And so you're thinking, this is just hopeless offensively. And then they burst out of the gate, first play from scrimmage in the second half with an 80-yard touchdown run. It goes from this offense is so purposeless to that was amazing.
It was amazing. And a little overlooked in that 80-yard touchdown by Marcus Smith was how well the offensive line blocked. Thad Coleman pushed his man outside. Darius Bladdock made the block.
On Ted
Laurent. So I was watching it again this morning for some reason. I don't know why.
It's quite a hole.
It's quite a hole. It was amazing. And so that worked perfectly. And then he got a couple blocks downfield from a couple receivers, which helped a lot. And then he showed his speed. So you're a football, but that's like everything you want in one play.
For sure.
And produces the touchdown and a game-changing touchdown. I know there are other plays and they weren't winning. No, they weren't leading at that time, but it still changes the whole mood in that game because I don't think anybody expected them to come out and score a touchdown on their first touch of the ball.
Or at all. After the end of the first half.
It just has we may look back sometime in October as a game-changing point, a season-changing point. It may well be that run. Because all of a sudden Brandon Bridge played like the guy everyone talks like he could play like. He's more comfortable. He's more confident. It just changes the whole attitude of the team, which we haven't seen those. We don't see attitude-changing plays under Chris Jones very often. Christian Jones has made some punt returns, but this year, that's probably the one that was the biggest one. And boy, Thigpen's fast. I'd like to see him, if he measured against the other guys in the league, Chris Williams or Brandon Banks. I still think, because he's a track guy at heart.
He's got an extra gear for sure.
And he kicked it in there when that Coley, I think it was, tried to catch him, and he just found another gear.
Yeah. You understand the fitness industry thoroughly. How exceptional is it for somebody at the age of 32 to be able to run away from everybody? I mean, you played in the CFL as a 32-year-old, and you're the last 32-year-old to remember being that fast.
Nowhere near that fast.
How do you do that as a 32-year-old football player? How exceptional is it to maintain that kind of speed at his age, especially when he was out of football for a while?
Well, I think anybody that runs away from anybody on the football field stands out, because you're talking about a very, very elite subset of the population. They're all fast people. Pretty much everyone is, down to the D linemen, they're all fast. And for you to, witness someone pulling away from another person, and, he did it last year too. I remember this too. There's just a couple times where it's like he says, if I change gears, I'm going to score. And he decides to do it, and it happens. So yeah, it's an exceptional trait for sure. And, to be able to maintain that speed, at what most would consider probably the later aspects of his career, that takes a lot of disciplined attention to a lot of different details in the off season for sure.
What if there's a place you could go to help with your speed like that? Eh?
I wonder.
I wonder if there's any spot in town where if you want to increase your speed, because you work with a lot of older athletes too.
Sure. Yeah,
and you turn them into amazing people, amazing athletes.
Yeah, I mean, and younger as well. I mean, a lot of speed is. You have to say there's some genetic predispositions that definitely help out with that too, but there's some technical things that athletes can work on and that can help improve their speed. And as a track and field athlete, he would be well versed on those things. And it's evidenced by what he's able to accomplish on the field for sure.
One of the cool things was he looked up in the scoreboard and he could see the guys coming from behind him, and that's when he kicked into another gear. So he's got the wherewithal to make the big long run, and then he's got here comes, I can't remember the guy's name right now, who's coming behind.
Oh, he's a DB, so he's not a slow player,
and then
right?
He just found another gear. So it was just an amazing play, an amazing quarter. I think that's kind of overlooked in that. I know we're all saying 24 points in the second half, 21 of them in the third quarter. Rob, you look been around. Was that their best third quarter since?
It was a pretty good one. The I watched the Kent Austin era. Dan played in part of it, and that was a slow third quarter for the Kent Austin era. Or the John Gregory, the year which John Gregory got fired. The team and Don Matthews took over. There were 3 games where the Riders scored 40 plus points and lost.
Yeah. Oh, I remember it. Yeah.
I remember those. The 90s were wonderful.
Oh, they were fantastic.
How has it changed? I mean, the CFL back then was so wide open. You know, you'd have in 1991 the Riders set enduring franchise records for most points scored and most points allowed.
Oh, wow.
You know, I mean, it was just the Riders lost 50-47 that year.
Yeah.
You don't see those games that often anymore. The CFL is still known for as a wide open, exciting league, but it reached its halcyon during the early years of your career, and you played a part in that. Why was it like that, and why has it changed?
You know, it's so hard to put a finger on that. I often think about that, and you know, it's really, really tough to identify. I mean, it was fun. It was like what you played in the schoolyard, you know, like, and there were some other characters around the league that made that atmosphere kind of feel that way too, like the Fluties and the Damon Allens and all those guys that could just kind of play sandlot football and make it incredibly entertaining, you know, and fun. Like I had a few friends who would play with other teams as well, and they described the situation that you got to be ready to catch the ball 15 yards downfield because you might get a lateral in the face mask, and you know, and that's sandlot football, and you know, so it definitely was a fun era to be involved in for sure because the ball was being thrown a lot. You know, I think there has been, I would say, sort of a resurgence of the running game over the past little while with some of the very talented backs in the CFL, and you know, I think that when you made a comment about Brandon Bridge playing a little bit differently after that play, there's nothing like an awesome running game to take pressure off a quarterback. Yep. So when the pressure is shared in and amongst all the guys on the offense rather than rest solely on the pivot's shoulders, then he's going to play a little bit differently for sure.
I have a theory, or a couple of theories about that. One is that I wonder if the running game has had a bit of a resurgence because teams adjusted to the passing game so much that they started playing 190-pound linebackers. Right, so maybe the coaches are thinking, well, let's just run over them. And it also seems to me that coaches are putting a lot more of their Americans on defense than used to be the case. Yeah. And I wonder if overloading the defensive side of the ball with the Americans, and some of those Americans not being defensive backs playing linebacker, would detract from the passing game and almost compel teams to run the ball a little bit more often.
Look how fast the defensive ends are now.
Yeah.
Willie Jefferson plays it another gear. He plays it. I something he might have running back speed. He just has that. Charleston Hughes doesn't look that fast, but he moves. And you're looking across the league in the defensive ends, and I know there were great ones back in the day, but I just watched the development of defensive ends now, and it's just hard to be a quarterback to find time with these guys. Come at you full blast with another American blocking them, and they're still blown by.
Right. When you're airing the ball out all the time, like back in the day too, you know, there's a lot of time left on the clock all of the time. Yeah. So like you better outscore your opponent, excuse me, and that means you need to score 50 points to win a game, because if they have a minute and 11 seconds left, they're going to score 2 touchdowns, not just one. So I think people started to value the running game a little bit more because it gave them a little bit more sense of control of time of possession. Perhaps that's it. I'm not sure. But a lead was never safe, that's for sure. And, you know, I guess we're talking on the heels of an 80-yard touchdown run, and that definitely impacted this game as well. But in terms of controlling a game, controlling the line of scrimmage usually means, you know, the grinding out yards and things like that. In terms of lead protection, that's probably more effective than airing it out every single play.
We look how that game ended with them running Jerome Messam 8 times in the last 2 possessions for 52 yards, and Jerome Messam can do that. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to break open a 30-yard run now anymore. Hopefully he can, maybe he will, but they used him the way he should be used, and that's what we've been clamoring for since game 1 to use Jerome Messam as that big body guy to just slam it, because it's got to wear I don't care how professional you are, it's got to wear you down, slamming into Jerome Messam play after play after play.
It's just physics, absolutely.
Yeah. And they wore them down, and they won the game for other reasons, but he won the game for that reason, and that was, I think it's a little bit overlooked in that the Riders had 52 of their 218 yards in the last couple of possessions.
What do you make of this Duron Carter thing? We should almost
Duron Carter mention. Yay!
We should get the Duron Carter segment sponsored, because I think it's been mentioned every
week. Carter's liver pills, maybe those.
Like Did they ever try to move you to defensive back?
Oh no, God no. That would have been a disaster in the disaster situation.
Can you run that fast backwards?
Boy, oh my goodness. I played a little defensive back in high school, but that was the last time I saw that side of the football. But you know, Duron Carter is an exceptional athlete. There's no two ways about it, for sure. You know, the guys that play those skill positions need the athletic attributes that he has. You know, he is a very, very talented receiver. You know, to throw a guy on the other side of the ball just because he possesses the athletic attributes to play that position, I think does an injustice and a disservice to the guys that have actually spent their whole life learning the technical aspects of that position. You know, you can have fantastic athletic attributes and still, you know, lack the experience and you know, the foundational techniques that make defensive backs super successful. You know, so you know, is he having a better defensive back season than some defensive backs in this league? Probably. He maybe is, you know, but you know, would he be having one of the top 5 receiving seasons if he was playing on that side of the ball? You know, I think he has the skill set to do that because that's where he's, you know, most well versed.
I just say play him both ways. Let's get back to the basic roots of Duron Carter, both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
He worked out in training camp the whole time playing both ways. He's in shape. He can get the plays. He knows his body. Get him playing both ways. And then the debate kind of goes away a little bit. We're not questioning Chris Jones's reasons and strategy. Put on both sides of the ball, and we watched Duron Carter put together what I think could have been a generational type year if he was playing on both sides of the ball. It's something we rarely see, and he can do it. So I'm more in favor of both-way Carter than the one-way Carter.
I would argue that if that might be a big ask considering the length of a game. You might wear him down by the end of the game, but at least use him selectively on offense. If you're in the red zone or green zone or whatever color the zone is called now, what color would
he's a pretty great target, you know he has an ability to go up and get the football, and you know, and he's got a need and a want to also get the tough yards as well, which makes him, I'd say so, you know, so I think he would be effective at certain points on the field too.
Doesn't he have to play?
Situationally.
Doesn't he have to play, though? He has to play wide receiver. Like, I don't know if World erupted yesterday with him having a couple reps on offense. It wasn't really, I didn't see it particularly exciting. He just had a couple reps. He's got to stay sharp as a receiver. You got to play the position. And I don't think he's doing that as much. And I think giving him more reps in practice and games will get him more used to being a wide receiver again. I'm not saying he can't play, but I just think, could you have gone with be a wide receiver and not have practiced?
You know, no, I don't think so, because you know, I think the offensive playbooks are fairly complex, you know, and I think with each and every play in that playbook, there are specific little nuances to each and every play that you know, permutations that you have to kind of change the route or change where you're leaning or running or angling just based on the defense that you see, based on the technique of the defensive back. And the less you kind of see that same play in 100 different situations, you might not make the right decision, and then you might leave your quarterback out to dry because he saw something different. So, you know, I think a rapport needs to be established between a receiver and a quarterback as well. I mean, if you expect the quarterback to throw the ball on time, which usually means before or at the break, that quarterback better know that receiver's body language and what an about to break kind of, you know, body motor pattern looks like, so that he can predict where he should put the football. And if he's only seen that once or twice in a year and you expect him to be able to recognize that in the heat of battle, I think there's less of a likelihood that that's going to happen.
And you're not looking at players who have an established rapport, like it's okay, Weston Dressler goes to the NFL and then he comes back, and Darian Durant and Dressler theoretically could just pick up where they've left off because they have that body of work together. You don't have that situation.
No.
Brandon Bridge playing as sparingly as he has for most of his career. David Watford being a novice at playing in the Canadian Football League. So they can't pull anything out of the archives when you're trying to make those plays. And a split second or a yard here and there can be the difference between a completion and interception a lot of the time.
In order to achieve that sandlot football we were talking about before, there has to be some unwritten communication that's happening, some assumptions, and some of those assumptions come from cues, and those cues come from the rapport. So I would say that a dedication to one side or the other would make him probably more effective. I have a bias because I like him as a receiver right now. I really do. I think the point has been made several times about, the infinite reservoir of talent that you can draw from down in the States of defensive backs. And, it is a little bit perplexing that, someone can't be found to liberate them to put him back on the offensive side of the football. But, there are challenges with personnel all the time. And I know that it's not an easy fix. That's for sure.
And they're going to need them this weekend. They're facing Calgary, and I think we've both seen. I don't think I've seen a better defense in a long, long time. I don't think I've seen a better offense in a while.
Yeah.
So they need Duron Carter on offense, and they're probably going to need him on defense. Because I still think, and I go back to that pick, I don't know where Bo Levi was throwing that ball that he returned for a touchdown.
Wetaskiwin, I think.
Wetaskiwin. It was just a bad pass that he returned for a touchdown. But also was probably the worst set of tackling skills I've ever seen displayed by a professional.
He seemed to be running around forever for sure. But you're talking about offensive guys trying to make a tackle too.
Well, that's true. But they play football, so
yeah.
They're going to be in tough this weekend. I think some people are talking about Carter being on Rogers. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if I'd put Rogers is pretty good. I don't think Duron Carter's quite ready to step up to covering him.
It almost starts. Who do you put Ed Gainey on?
That's Rogers, wouldn't it be?
Rogers or Daniels? And Daniels is 6'1", so he's comparable height to Ed Gainey. If you're looking to match body types, it's Carter versus Rogers. Carter.
But who do you want to take out of Calgary's game? That's we have to, because Ed Gainey can do that.
Well, does it matter if you take one guy out of their game? That's the point
that's
too,
another
right?
point too.
Like if you're going to take one guy out of the game, what is a good quarterback going to do, right? Like
they eliminated Brandon Banks.
Basically. Yeah.
And then left Tolliver to try to.
But the options are finite when you don't have Luke Tasker, and you look at Calgary and they have multitaskers, receivers who can just harm. Like you look right across the board, and if you overcompensate there, well, guess what? Calgary's got a running game that has a lot more explosiveness.
And if they don't score, it doesn't matter because their defense only gives up 10 points a game.
On a bad day.
On a bad day. So 9.2 points. That's just a crazy number.
So you've got the Calgary averaging 9.2 points against.
Wow.
And you've got the Riders who've scored 6 touchdowns in 5 games offensively. Like to me, that it looks like you're going to get one of those Regina Rugby Club type scores coming up this weekend. How do you score against this team when you can't score against Eastern teams prolifically?
This year has surprised me so many times with outcomes of games where I've been totally surprised and shocked by what's actually going on. A game that you expect to be low scoring, it ends up being high scoring. Someone that you think is a surefire winner ends up not winning, kind of thing. But I think we all have our thoughts on this being a true test for this football team and a real barometer as to where they actually are, and whether or not just keeping it close is going to even be possible. And if they're going to be able to overcome a defense that's super stingy. So there's a nice test ahead. We'll say that.
6 of them, all against West Division teams. And a bye week, which is really nice.
Calgary here twice.
Yeah.
A nice bye week in there, too. Because it's been so long since I had any time off.
Speaking of the bye, we're done.
We're done. So, goodbye.
Murray McCormick, thank you, as always, for being with us.
It was a pleasure, Rob. Something you never hear very often.
Dan Farthing, can't thank you enough for the honor of my presence here today.
Yeah.
I forget my name at the moment. I'm Rob Vanstone. Thanks again for being with us, and we'll hopefully do this again next week. Take care.